Hey, welcome back. I'm playing my cozy Minecraft world tonight. You're doing your thing. I have a couple of things I have to do today. Maybe mine a little. If you doze off, honestly, that's a win. We've got a few Reddit stories lined up. Relationships, a wedding MIL moment, a roommate who thinks locks solve feelings, and a neighbor who loves rules a little too much. Tones chill. No yelling. I'll place blocks. You zone out. If you're working, keep at it. If you're winding down, same. All right. First one's about a guy who, hit a whole baby. Let's roll. We met in a boring way. Grocery store line. He joked about the price of berries. I said they were worth it. He asked what I was making. I said pancakes at night because I'm a rebel with low standards. He laughed. We swapped numbers. It felt easy. Low effort, low stakes, high serotonin. We started grabbing coffee, then ramen, then weekends. He was kind in all the small ways. Carried my tote when it dug into my shoulder. Remembered I hate cilantro. Texted good morning without a meme attached. The bar's on the floor sometimes, but he cleared it by a mile. He had a few quirks. Emergency errands on Sunday afternoons. Always a quick call first. Then he'd say, "Hey, sorry, I've got to run an errand. Back in an hour." I asked what kind. He said, family stuff. He said his sister leaned on him a lot. Single mom, stressful job. I got it. I liked that he helped. Green flag, right? He showed me photos of his niece. Cute kid, big cheeks. 2 little ponytails that looked like question marks. He'd hold the phone out, smiling. Look at her. She's a menace. There were lots of pictures. Playground, high chair, sleepy car seat face, no dad in the frame. I assumed that was a boundary his sister set. I didn't ask much. Not my business. We were still new. When we hit month 2, we traded keys. Casual swap in his kitchen. He placed his on my palm like I was receiving a medal. You don't have to, I said. He said he wanted me to. He called me his favorite person. My brain did a small cartwheel. I made pancakes that night, and he said they were the best pancakes. And I said, he says that about everything I cook. And he said, that's because he likes me, and also maple syrup is a scam unless it's the fancy kind. We were stupid like that. Happy stupid. Little things started not adding up, but they were small. He kept his phone face down. He said the screen glare bothered him. He'd step onto the balcony for calls, even when it was cold. He said his sister's place echoed, and he didn't want me to hear yelling and feel weird. He was protective like that. If this is a story about hindsight, this is where the highlighter goes. But in real time, life is messy. You assume the best, because he's right in front of you, being soft and helpful, and showing you videos of a kid eating blueberries like she discovered treasure. 3 months in, his mom invites me to family dinner. Big step. He asks if I'm up for it. I say yes. He says it won't be fancy. Just pasta and salad and jokes. He warns me his mom is a hugger. I say I'm a hugger too. He looks relieved like I solved a bigger problem than salad forks. I bring flowers. Mom hugs me before the door even closes. The house smells like garlic, and a candle that's trying very hard to be a coastline. His sister's there with the niece. The kid is cautious at first, hides behind her mom's leg, and peeks at me like I'm a new toy she hasn't decided on. I crouch and say hi. She stares at the flowers like they might bark. Dinner is loud in a warm way. Stories overlap. His mom tells me about their old dog. His sister asks about my job. He squeezes my knee under the table and I tell a dumb story about burning rice. The kid narrates her pasta. No green, only cheese. We all obey like she's a tiny queen. After dinner, we move to the living room. Cartoons on low volume. The kid is on the carpet with blocks. I'm sipping tea and trying to memorize everyone's names. He goes to the kitchen to help with dishes. I watch the kid stack 2 blocks. then 3. She looks at me and says, "Watch." I say, "I'm watching." She puts a 4th block on top. It wobbles. She looks proud anyway. I clap. She grins. He walks back in with a dish towel on his shoulder, and it happens so fast. The kid turns, sees him, and lights up like someone flipped a switch. She drops the block tower and runs across the rug with her arms up. "Dida!" The word hangs there. It's not misheard, not garbled, clear and sharp like a bell. Dada. My tea is suddenly very interesting. His sister freezes. His mom makes a sound people make when they witness a car almost hit a curb. He stops walking. The dish towel slides off his shoulder onto the floor in slow motion, like a movie trying to be deep. The kid wraps herself around his leg and laughs like this is the best joke. He picks her up. He doesn't say anything for a second. Then he says, "Hey, Peanut." His voice does that soft thing you hear in grocery stores when a dad points out apples to a toddler. I set my cup down because my hand isn't cooperating. The room is quiet in a way that pretends it's not. I look at him. He looks at me. The kind of eye contact that's a whole conversation we didn't plan to have in front of a cartoon with a talking bus. His sister says my name, then says, "I thought, you told her." It's not mean. It's tired. His mom closes her eyes like she's been praying for a different scene, and the script ignored her. I ask the only question you can ask when a child says "dada," and you're not prepared for that child to exist in your relationship. "What's going on?" He starts with, "It's complicated." Of course it is. Everything that hurts is complicated. He says he meant to tell me. He says there was never a good time. He says he didn't want to lose me. He says he was waiting for things to be stable. He says a lot of things. None of them are lies, but none of them are the truth I needed when he handed me a key, like a promise. The kid taps his face. Down. He sets her down. She runs back to her blocks because kids have the right idea about priorities. His mom says my name in a gentle way. She says, "Do you want to step outside?" I do. We do. He follows me to the porch. It's cold. The candle coastline smell sneaks out and gets eaten by real air. I ask nothing for a second. I just breathe. He starts filling the space because silence is heavy and he can't carry it. He says he and his ex ended a long time ago. He says the timing overlapped by a minute, which is not a minute. I do math. I'm not good at math when my chest is tight, but this math is simple. The kid's age, the date we met, the weird Sunday errands, the balcony calls, the niece. My brain lines them up like dominoes and then tips one. I ask him when he found out. He says before we met. He says he was scared. He says he wanted a fresh start. He says he thought if we hit 3 months, he'd feel safe to tell me. I ask, safe for who? He says he didn't want to ruin a good thing. I tell him he did anyway. Not with the kid. The kid is not a ruin. The lie is. He keeps saying sorry. He says he loves spending time with me. He says I make him better. He says he didn't want me to think I was second place. He says a lot of I didn't want. I'm listening. I'm also listening to the other thing, which is my gut saying, you can't be trusted to handle big stuff with me, like I'm on your team. Because I am. Or I was. I tell him I'd have understood. If on date 3 he said, "Hey, there's a kid. It's complicated. I'm involved. I'm figuring it out," I'd have processed. I'd have asked my questions. I'd have made a choice with the truth in the room. I tell him he made that choice for me. He nods. He knows. His shoulders look smaller. We go back inside because it feels rude to leave his mom hostage in silence. The kid is stacking blocks again, this time with more confidence. The dish towel is still on the floor like a prop that missed its cue. I pick up my bag. I take out my key. I put it on the entry table. Tiny metal sound. He sees it. His face shifts. He says my name like it might change my mind. I say I'm going to head out. His mom tries to apologize on his behalf. She says he's a good dad. I say I believe her. I say that's not the problem I have. His sister says she's sorry for the ambush. I say it wasn't her job to manage this. She nods like she knows that too well. At the door, the kid looks up at me like kids do when new people leave. I smile at her and wave. She waves back with her whole arm. I hope she sleeps well. I hope she gets all the blueberries. He walks me to my car. It's quiet again. He asks if we can talk tomorrow. I say yes because I don't want to say no with his family listening. He asks if he can hug me. I say not right now. He steps back, respectful. I drive away and do the scream cry thing once I hit a red light. It's not dramatic. It's just a leak in the system. At home, I put my phone on the counter and stare at it like it should decide my life. Then, I text him. I tell him I'm not coming over this week. I tell him I need a minute. He says he understands. He says he'll answer anything. He says he'll send timelines if that helps. I don't reply to that because I don't need spreadsheets when the headline is clear. I call a friend. She picks up on the second ring. I give her the short version. She says, "Come over." She has a futon with my name on it. I pack a small bag because packing big feels permanent, and my brain can't do permanent at midnight. I grab my toothbrush, a shirt, sweats, charger, the maple syrup, because I bought it, and I leave. On the way, I think about all the times I gave him space because he said he had family stuff. I'm not mad at that. I'm mad he didn't let me be part of the truth of it. The next morning, he sends a long message. It's the kind where you scroll, and it keeps going. He says dates. He says the breakup with his ex was real. He says they tried to make it work when they found out about the baby. He says it didn't. He says they're co-parenting. He says he's at her place on Sundays because that's exchange day. He says he didn't tell me because he liked how we felt, and he wanted one part of his life to be simple. He says he knows that was selfish. He says he'll understand if I'm done. He says he hopes I won't be. I sit with it. I make eggs on my friend's tiny stove and burn one side and eat it anyway. I read the message again. It's honest now, but late. Late honesty isn't a discount you get on early lies. It's just late. I think about the kid saying, "Dada." Her voice didn't cause this. Her voice corrected it. At lunch, I tell him I'm coming by to pick up my hoodie and a book. He says okay. He asks if we can talk in person. I say we can talk. I bring a calm I borrowed from sleep. He opens the door like he's been rehearsing for an apology play. He looks wrecked. It doesn't move the needle for me, but it tells me he cares. So caring and capability are different. He cared. He wasn't capable of being honest when it counted. We sit on the couch with space between us. He talks first. He says he should have told me by date 3. He says he lied by omission, which is still lying. He says he understands why I left the key. He doesn't spin. He doesn't blame. He just takes the L like an adult. I respect that part. It would have been nice to meet that adult a month ago. I tell him I'm not signing up for this version of us. Not with this start. I tell him not because of the kid. I like kids. I could like his kid someday. In a world where we did this right. I tell him no because of the choice he made to keep me in the dark. He nods. His eyes are wet, and he doesn't hide it. Good. Don't hide true things anymore. He asks if we can try again later. I say maybe in a different timeline where he leads with the truth. He laughs once because even jokes are tired. I hand him the spare hoodie that was his on my chair. I take my book. I leave the maple syrup because he bought that one. Outside, I text his mom a thank you for dinner. I tell her she raised a son who clearly loves his child. I mean it. I tell her we're not going to keep seeing each other. She sends a heart and a take care. His sister sends a short message later. She says sorry again. She says she hopes the next person he dates gets the whole story on day one. I hope that too. For him. For them. For the tiny queen with the blocks. The week after, I move my stuff out of his place. It's not dramatic. A tote. A plant. 2 mugs that were technically mine. He's at his ex's place for pickup time, so a friend sits with me while I pack. We find a sock that doesn't match anything, and we laugh because that's how you stop the room from being weird. I leave the key on the counter. Again, that small metal sound. It feels like a period at the end of a long sentence. I block him? No, I don't. We're adults. He texts once more a month later. He says he hopes I'm okay. He says he and the kid made blueberry pancakes. He sends a photo of 2 plates with tiny handprints of syrup. I smile at my phone like a soft idiot and don't reply because sometimes silence is a boundary and not a punishment. I wish them well in my head. That counts. I tell my friend I feel like I dodged a bullet. She says, no, you dodged a slow leak. Both ruin a tire, both stop a trip. I go on a walk and let the cold air bite my face. It's nice to feel something that's not confusion. If you ever end up in a reveal like that, and it starts getting heated, or you feel unsafe, it's okay to step away and call someone you trust. Nothing you need to say is worth saying in a room that doesn't feel safe. You can finish the conversation when it's calm, or not at all. So that's it. He didn't hide a baby from the world. He hid the truth from me, which is its own kind of baby. Loud, demanding, and impossible to ignore once it shows up right in the middle of family dinner. I'm not mad at him for loving his kid. I'm mad he didn't trust me to love the truth, and I'm relieved I trusted myself when it finally knocked. Yeah, that ended clean. Okay, next one. We didn't start with drama. We started with a spreadsheet. Color-coded cells. Green for yes, yellow for maybe, gray for no, blue for waiting. I loved it too much. It made stress look orderly. It made money decisions, catering, chairs, tablecloths, feel like Tetris instead of roulette. Guest list was balanced. Half mine, half his. A couple of flex seats if 2 cousins from opposite ends of the map suddenly decided they believe in love more than airline prices. We sent invites with a QR code to a simple form. First name, last name, email, +1, dietary notes. Notes field had gems like no cilantro, play ABBA, and bring back deviled eggs. I was tempted. His mom offered to help, not in a villain way, in a I've done this before way. She said her side had some older folks who hated phones. She could collect their RSVPs by call. I said okay, as long as they still went into the form. She smiled and said of course. She wanted it to be simple for us. Week 1, everything looked normal. Green cells popped, yellow trickled. The comments column had happy noise. Can't wait. Babysitter pending. Is there parking? I nudged caterer numbers. We picked napkin colors. We laughed about making a no cilantro table. Life was cute. Week 2, I noticed something small. 3 of my friends texted me. We're so sad we can't make it, but we'll celebrate you later. I opened the sheet to mark them gray. 2 were already green. Weird. I figured maybe they changed their mind and forgot to tell me. I texted one, "Hey, your RSVP says yes. Is that wrong?" She sent a screenshot of her decline submission. Timestamped. The sheet timestamp was different. 2 hours later. Flipped to accept. Same email. Same name. I told myself it was a sync bug. Forms glitch. The internet eats data for sport. I rolled back the cell and moved on. Then a cousin I barely know messaged me. "We're so excited we made the list. Your future MIL called and said there was room for us after all." After all? After what? We hadn't cut them. We hadn't invited them. We were at capacity if the answer stayed green. We were not collecting expansions like Pokemon. I opened the sheet again. The balance had shifted. A line that used to say, +1 no was now, +1 yes with notes. Baby will be fine. The no kids line on the invite had stared at me for days when I wrote it. We only had space for sleeping children and strollers, not toddlers with opinions. This note did not care. I scrolled. My side was down 8 people from what I remembered. His side was up 11. A block of names had appeared under husbands, family, friends, which was a category that did not exist when we started. The emails looked similar. Same domain. Same patterns. Like one person filled out multiple cards while watching TV. I asked him about it. I kept my voice calm because our living room echoed, and I didn't want to hear my own panic bounce back. He said, "That's weird. Let me look." He looked. He frowned. "When did this change?" I said last I checked was 3 days ago. He said his mom called 3 days ago to say she'd finished her side. He didn't clock it because she always uses that phrase like she's closing a project. I said, "What does finished mean?" He said, "Probably called the stragglers." I said, "Or recruited new people." We paused. Silence is loud when it sits between money and love. We decided to check our friends directly. I sent 6 texts. He sent 6. It was a mix of, "We said no," "We said yes," and "We never got an invite, but your mom called." I put my forehead on the table for a minute. The wood felt cooler than my face. We called his mom. We were polite. We didn't open with the problem like a punch. We opened with, "Hey, thanks for helping." She sounded chipper. She said people were thrilled. She said it like an ad on the radio. I asked how she was collecting RSVPs for the older relatives. She said she took calls and updated the list for us. I asked where. She said on the sheet I shared. The sheet I gave her, view only, at the start. The sheet that now had edits. I checked permissions. Someone had editor access from a different email. Hers. She'd asked him for edit rights to fix typos. He gave them because who thinks typos means reallocate seats? I said, "I'm seeing some of my friends mark yes who told me no." She said, "Oh, maybe they weren't sure." I said, "They were sure enough to message me sadness." She said, "That's okay. I had to make sure family gets first preference." There it was. The phrase that looks neutral and lands heavy. First preference. I said the list was balanced. She said fairness doesn't mean equal when there are elders to consider. I said we sent invites based on our budget and our capacity and the vibe we wanted. She said she understood, but people will be hurt if they're not included. I said, people will be hurt either way. That's why boundaries exist. She said I sounded like a podcast. He stepped in. He said, "Mom, we picked this venue because of the size. We can't add 20 people." She said, "I didn't add 20. I scrolled and counted softly. It was 19. I didn't read it out. Not helpful. We ended the call with a vague plan to revisit, which is adult for we're going to argue again. That night we opened the form settings. We looked at IP logs. We saw clumps. Many responses from one network within an hour. We saw email addresses that looked like first name dot, last name, family at old school mail. We recognized her pattern. We didn't want to go full detective, but it felt like the sheet was a house and she'd rearranged the furniture and then insisted she was just dusting. I slept badly and dreamed of chairs yelling, "I belong here." The next morning, I made coffee and made a new plan. Not revenge, just control. We cloned the form. We added unique codes tied to each invite. We turned off public edits. We locked the response sheet. We turned on email confirmations that only we could resend. We drafted a short, gentle message. We're reconfirming headcount with the venue. Please confirm your RSVP by clicking this new link and entering your code. We sent it to everyone, including his mom's list. I expected a reaction. I was right. She called within minutes. Why are you making it so complicated? I said. Because it got complicated. She said, people won't understand how to use codes. I said, we'll help them. They can call us. She said, they'll call me. I said, please direct them to us. She said nothing for a long beat. Then she said, you're making me look bad. I said, I'm protecting our plan. She said she felt excluded. I believed that, not in the way she meant. In the way power feels when it shifts in your hands and you still want it. He took the phone and said, Mom, we love you. We need you to let us handle the RSVPs now. He said it like a script we practiced. We hadn't. He just spoke like a partner. She hung up. He stared at his phone like it should explain itself. The reconfirmations rolled in. The numbers settled into a new truth. Some of her ads confirmed. Many did not. A few called to say they were never invited. But your mom thought we'd enjoy the party. I told them we were tight on the space and wished them well. Most were kind. People are kinder than we fear when you treat them like adults. Two of my friends who had mysteriously flipped to yes confirmed no again and joked about me saving them from buying shoes. One of his cousins who had been added without our knowledge called to say she couldn't make it anyway. She had a shift. She sounded relieved she didn't have to pretend. We invited two of our flex people. They were over the moon. It felt good to make a yes happen the way it was supposed to happen. Then came the living room, sit down with his mom. No distractions. No spaghetti bribes. Just three adults and a spreadsheet open on a TV like the world's least fun movie. She started with, I wanted family to be there. I said, so did we. She said, you don't understand how people talk. I said, I do. I also understand how invoices work. I pointed at the line that said per person cost and the line that said chairs. She looked away like numbers were rude. He said, Mom, you changed our guests. She said she didn't change. She corrected. He said, we had a list. You edited it without asking. She said she felt like she had to because we were slow. I said slow isn't an emergency. She said she was saving us from awkward conversations later. I said, you gave us different awkward ones now. I was not trying to win. I was trying to end. We laid out simple boundaries. We would send all communications. We would manage the form. We would share counts, not names. We would set a clear rule for plus ones. No ring, no bring. Unless we'd met them or they were traveling together. She didn't love that one. She said, but cousins. We said, budget. We also offered her something real, so it didn't just feel like a lockout. We asked her to pick two things that mattered to her where she could have control. She picked family table seating and dessert flavor for a small side cake. I could live with that. She loves seating like people love puzzles. She wants to see elders near exits. She wants to prevent an ancient feud from happening near an open bar. Fine. Take it. Keep peace. Pick the lemon cake too. I'll be busy dancing to ABBA. She calmed. Her shoulders dropped a centimeter. She wanted to be needed. I get that. I just didn't need her in the Google Sheet like a ghost editor. There was a week of frost. She was polite on the phone. She didn't send heart emojis. I didn't either. We existed like coworkers, not quite making eye contact. We held the line. The numbers stayed balanced. The caterer stopped texting me at midnight with panic about final counts. 2 days before their wedding, she tried one more small thing. She forwarded an email from a distant relative. They're in town after all, with a smiley face like a dare. We hugged each other and replied, "We're at capacity, but we'd love to see them the day after at brunch." She sent a period. I sent a thumbs up. He put his phone face down, and we sat in the quiet and felt the relief of choosing our own limits. The wedding day came. It was pretty in the way normal days are pretty when you're not pretending they're a movie. My hair wasn't perfect. His tie was determined to be crooked. The florist forgot a small bundle, and then found it under a chair. My cousin cried at the sight of chairs. The band played Dancing Queen, and older people did hip moves that looked illegal. I looked over at the family table. She smiled with her eyes wet and squeezed an aunt's hand at the exact beat the photographer snapped. She had placed the aunt near an exit. She had won that game. Mid-reception, she came up to me. She tucked a stray hair behind my ear, the way moms do when they feel tender and forget to ask. She said, "It's beautiful." I said, "It is." She said, "I see why you kept the list tight." I said, "Thanks for the seating chart." We traded a truce without paperwork. Later that night, when my shoes were somewhere in the universe and my feet were trying to draft a lawsuit, I sat with him against a wall behind the venue kitchen, a plate of lemon cake between us. He said, "I'm proud of us for not exploding." I said, "Me too." He said, "I'm proud of my mom for coming around." I said, "Me too." Then we fed each other cake because it was there, and because we're predictable. In the days after, debrief texts rolled in. People said the ceremony was short but sweet. The food was honest. The playlist banged. No one said, "Where was Cousin X?" Or, "Why didn't you invite Y?" People have less energy to fight our choices than we think. Most of the struggle lives in our heads with rent control. A week later, his mom sent a long message. She apologized for overstepping. She said, "Control is love, but it didn't feel like love on your end." She said she wanted to do better. She asked for a copy of one photo where she's got her hand on an aunt's shoulder. I sent it. She set it as her profile picture. That felt like closure and not a PR move. We archived the form. We archived the sheet. We deleted editor access and laughed about it like closing a door slowly so it doesn't creak. I thought about the early phone call when she said family first and how we heard two different definitions. Mine is the new family we're building. Hers was the family that already exists. Both are true, but only one of them plans the RSVPs. If you ever find yourself in a family conversation that starts getting heated or goes in circles, it's okay to pause, breathe, and loop in a neutral person, like your planner, coordinator, or even the venue manager. You can always finish hard talks when everyone's calm. I don't think she was trying to ruin anything. I think she wanted to guarantee joy in a system that doesn't guarantee seats. She picked control because control feels like safety when you're scared of being left out. We picked boundaries because boundaries feel like safety when you're scared of being overwhelmed. We landed somewhere decent. Months later, we went to dinner at her place. She made too much pasta in the way moms make too much. She asked if we could bring the lemon cake again for tradition. We did. She asked if she could see the photos one more time. We showed her the album. She stopped on the picture of the family table and the aunt near the exit. She tapped it and smiled. "Perfect," she said. Not the whole day, not the war. Just that rectangle of chairs she had arranged like chess. We let her have that victory. It cost nothing. It bought peace. Sometimes people talk about weddings like they're tests you pass or fail. For us, it was just a map with one area circled in red marker. RSVPs. Don't hand the marker over. Draw with people. Use a ruler if you have to. Leave some white space. And if someone tries to scribble on your map when you're not looking, make a new copy. Put it on the fridge. Keep your codes. Invite who you actually want in the photo when you're old and squinting at it in a too bright living room with lemon cake crumbs on your shirt. Clean ending, and nobody had to scream. All right, Moving on to the next story. The keypad went up on a Tuesday. I came home from work, and there it was, bolted onto the pantry door like our snacks had joined a bank. Silver face, little rubber buttons, a chirp when you touched it. My roommate stood in the kitchen like he'd just invented budgeting. He said, "This is for discipline. Groceries are out of control, minamau." I said, "Cool," because on paper, discipline is cute. Also because it was his drill and his energy, and I didn't feel like dying on a Tuesday. He handed me a code like he was passing state secrets. 4 numbers, not subtle. He said, "Don't share it with guests." I said I don't invite guests who steal pasta. He laughed. The pantry chirped. He looked proud, the way people look proud after they buy a label maker. I was chill. I'm not a pantry anarchist. I keep my food labeled. My shelf was the second from the top. I had my little system. Left to right, rice, beans, pasta, canned tomatoes, spices, and a tiny section for sauces I pretend are fancy. I even put dates on things because I like knowing when I became the kind of person who buys sesame oil. The first week with the keypad felt normal. We typed the code. We got our food. The chirp became background noise, like the fridge hum. He started saying things like, "I think this is already saving us money." I hadn't seen a receipt, but okay. He's a feels-like person. I'm a shows-up on the bank app person. Relationships between these two types are a miracle or a sitcom. Roommates are somewhere in the middle. Stuff started disappearing in week 2. Not big thefts. Little bites. A scoop missing from my rice. A jar of sauce 1 inch lower. My almond butter with an eloquent smear at the rim that wasn't my eloquence. I told myself I was miscounting. I told myself gravity is a thief. I told myself I'd eaten late and forgot. I gaslit myself so gently, I almost thanked me. Then the Tupperware happened. I meal prepped because I'm a boring hero. 4 containers of chickpea salad, labeled with painter's tape. Chickpea 1-4, little dates next to them, lined up like soldiers. 2 days later, chickpea 2 had a new level, 1 inch gone. The lid had my fingerprint smear. Except I wear gloves when mixing turmeric because it stains, and there was a yellow print I knew wasn't mine. I unsnapped the corner and sniffed. Refrigerator cold. Different spoon vibe. I asked my roommate, calm voice, "Hey, did you move my containers?" He looked genuinely confused. "No. Ants maybe?" He said it the way people say aliens in documentaries. I blinked. "Ants don't open Tupperware." He shrugged. "They're smart." I nodded like I was in a meeting called The Smart Ants, and we were all lying to each other. Fine. I got boring. I took pictures, shelf shots, left, center, right, time and date in the corner, because my phone has that setting, and I decided to be annoying in a quiet way. Rice level Monday. Rice level Wednesday. Jar lid orientation. Container labels. This was not CSI. This was, I pay for groceries, and I want to finish my hummus. 3 days later, Tupperware 3 had the telltale dip. The painter's tape had a new crease, like someone peeled it back and stuck it down lazy. I texted myself the photo, so I couldn't pretend it didn't happen. I put my phone down and felt like an auditor for a snack company. I set a time to talk. Calm meeting, not a confrontation. I made tea because tea forces humans to sit and hold something warm and not throw it. I said, "I'm noticing my stuff going down." He said, "Mine too." I let that hang. Then I showed him 2 photos. Same container, less food. Same jar, new spoon track. He frowned. Weird. I said, "Let's make it simple. Replace what you eat, or don't touch it." He rolled his eyes. "I don't eat your stuff." I said, "Cool. Then the rule doesn't apply to you." He laughed, but with that edge people get when the joke doesn't fit. We wrote it down on the whiteboard because the whiteboard makes roommates behave for 1 day. Replace what you eat, or don't touch it. We added a second line. Shared shelf stays shared, but ask before finishing anything. We added a third line. If you need something, text. He wrote ants in the corner like a running gag. For a minute it worked. My stuff stayed the same shape. He bought his own almond butter. He posted a photo to his story with a caption about adulting. The pantry chirped each time we went in. I got used to the beep the way people get used to a neighbor's wind chime. Slightly annoying, but harmless. Then there was the midnight clink. I sleep like a person with YouTube rain sounds and a conscience. But that night, a soft clink cut through the rain. Pantry chirp. I looked at my phone. 2:14 a.m. Footsteps. Another chirp. Fridge open. Fridge close. The tiny vent above my door does not forgive. The next morning, my container 4 looked lighter. Not empty light. New spoon light. I wanted to be wrong. I checked the photo. Nope. I texted him, "Hey, if you're hungry at night, please grab your own stuff. Happy to share if you ask." He texted back a thumbs up, then followed it with, "Ants LOL." Fine. I was done arguing with the concept. Here's the part I did carefully. There's a camera pointed at our patio for package theft. We already had it. Common space, no bedrooms, no bathrooms, no surprises. I moved it an inch and angled it at the pantry door. Not inside. Not on him chopping onions. Just the door. I told him I was doing it. "Packages in pantry," I said. He said, "Cool, keep my snacks safe." If you ever try to solve a shared space problem with cameras, make sure you follow your local rules and get consent. Common spaces only. No secret filming. People deserve privacy. That night, the chirp woke me again. I didn't get up. I let the future me handle it. The next morning, I checked the feed. There he was. Hair like a storm cloud. Hoodie. Bare feet. He typed the code. He went in. He came out with my container. He opened, spooned, closed, wiped the rim with a paper towel, in a way that said, "I know I'm doing something you'll notice." He relocked. He walked to the couch. He watched something on his phone, ate, and then put the container back in the pantry, like a raccoon returning a wallet. I didn't feel rage. I felt bored. Bored is a powerful fuel because it doesn't ask for a fight. It asks for a solution. I waited until dinner. He was frying something that smelled like garlic and forgiveness. I said, "Can we look at something together?" He said, "Sure," and turned the burner down. I pulled up the video. He watched himself thief my chickpea like he was seeing a weather report. He rubbed his eye. "That's okay." He tried a joke. Caught in 4K. I didn't laugh. He stopped smiling. I was hungry. I said, "I'm not mad you were hungry. I'm annoyed you didn't ask." He said, "It was late." I said, "My phone works at night." He said, "I wasn't thinking." I said, "That's how food disappears." He nodded. He looked small in the way people do when their story collapses. He said, "I'll replace it." I said, "That's the rule." He said, "I'll pay you for all the past stuff, too." I said, "I'm not keeping a tab. Just don't do it again." He said, "Okay." He apologized. He even wiped down the counter like a man on a redemption arc. For 3 days, peace. Then came the olive oil. I buy the nice kind when it's on sale, and I ration it like perfume. One night I opened the bottle, and it felt light. I checked the level etched in my brain. It was lower. I looked at the top. It had oil where I wipe it dry. I didn't want to do this again, but I opened the camera anyway. There he was, not even subtle. Pour, relock, wipe. He's a thorough thief. We sat again, same teacups, new boredom. I said, "This keeps happening." He said, "It's just oil." I said, "It's just honesty." He said, "You're making a big deal." I said, "You installed a keypad." He looked away. He didn't like that mirror. I tried to hand him an easy save. We can move to a true split pantry. Your shelf, my shelf, shared shelf. No touch unless we agree. He said, I don't want to live in a house where we count tablespoons. I said, then don't take tablespoons. He rolled his eyes again. The same eye roll from the first meeting. The eye roll of a person who wants the feeling of being fair more than the doing of it. We tried a shopping list. We tried, if you run out, use mine and put the brand on the board. He never wrote on the board. He wrote ants again, like the world's laziest bit. I realized something after one more midnight video. He liked the keypad because it felt like control. He liked sneaking because it felt like special access. It was a game where he was both guard and thief. He didn't want to stop playing. He wanted me to stop noticing. The lease was month to month. That's both a blessing and a threat. It's freedom, but it's also a timer. I decided to use the freedom. I opened a listing site and started scrolling. Nothing fancy. An apartment with an old window and a radiator that hisses like gossip. A kitchen with shelves I could trust like I trust gravity. I found a place 6 blocks away with a slightly crooked floor and a landlady who said, no loud parties unless you invite me. I liked her. I applied. I got it. I wrote a notice letter that was short and kind. 30 days. Thanks for the time. Hope you find a good fit. I taped it to our whiteboard under his ants and the doodle of a bee he was working on. He stared at it for a long minute, like it might morph into never mind. He said, is this because of the chickpeas? I said, it's because I like my food to be there when I open the door. He said, I'll change. I said, maybe, but I want to cook without a keypad soundtrack. He offered to remove the lock. He even took a screwdriver out of a drawer like a grand gesture. He unscrewed 2 screws and then stopped. He said, I kind of like it. I said, I know. We didn't fight. We coexisted through the 30 days, like people at an airport who missed their flight but found sockets. Polite. Tired. Focused on the next thing. He taped receipts to the fridge, for the record. I didn't ask for them. He bought a fresh bottle of olive oil and wrote my name on it like an apology. I appreciated the effort. I still packed my spices in a shoebox with more care than I've ever packed a sweater. On my last night, I cleaned the pantry shelf with warm water and a cloth. It felt like erasing a chalkboard. I pulled my painter's tape labels off and stuck them to the side of the recycling bin like little blue tombstones. He stood in the doorway. He said, "You're a good roommate." I said, "You could be." He nodded. He didn't say ants. Move-in day at the new place was boring in the best way. 3 trips up the stairs, boxes labeled pantry, plates, comfort. I set my spices on an open shelf like they were taking a sunbath. No chirp, just the normal sound of a normal home. I made pasta with too much garlic and poured the nice oil without a calculator in my head. I sat on the floor and ate out of a bowl because chairs arrive late to every party. He sent one text the week after I left. "Hope the new place is good." I sent back a photo of a plain wooden cabinet and wrote, "No keypad cosplay." He sent a laughing emoji and a touche. That was it. We drifted back into being names in each other's phone we don't tap. If you're dealing with a roommate who ignores food boundaries, keep it calm and keep it simple. Document what matters. Talk in daylight and loop in a neutral third party if you feel stuck, like your landlord or a mediator. If any conversation starts feeling heated or unsafe, it's okay to press pause and step away. No meal is worth a blow-up. You can finish the chat when it's calm or decide to change the living situation like I did. I don't hate the keypad. It taught me what I need. I like budgets. I like rules. I like my carrots turning into soup because I cooked them, not because someone had a midnight epiphany. In the end, the lock did its job. It locked a door I didn't want to walk through anymore. That backfired and then solved itself. Okay, Next story. It was a small cafe with a big personality. Chalkboard menu that never erased all the way. Plants and jam jars. A bell on the door that sounded like a bicycle ride. We opened at 6 a.m., which meant someone's alarm went off at 4:45, and somebody else lied to themselves about a quick snooze. It wasn't fancy. It was good. People came for the croissants and stayed for the baristas who remembered their dog's name. Our boss liked to call the place a family. He also liked to call the time clock flexible. The tablet by the back door had a habit. Your start time would land clean, and your end time would land a little short. 5 minutes shaved if you clocked out on time. 10 if you clocked out late. Somehow, the math always fell downhill. Rounding, he called it. Standard practice, he said, tapping the screen like it owed him rent. Card tips disappeared into the register like coins into a fountain. Customers were generous. They hit 15% because the machine flashed it. We had a tip pool split by hours. In theory, it was transparent. In practice, it felt like a magician's sleeve. Boss kept the jar off the counter, for hygiene, and said he'd fold cash tips into the card total, so it's fair. It always landed short. No one could prove it. We just felt the weight of missing ones and fives. You can feel the difference when rent week hits. It starts as a vibe. A barista says, "My check is light." The baker says, "Mine too." The dishwasher says, "I'm not crazy, right?" We compare notes in our heads, and then we don't. Because you don't want to be that employee. You need the job. You need the quiet. You want the regular who calls you sunshine to keep doing that. But patterns don't care about politeness. They show up anyway. I closed 3 nights in a row, scheduled till 10. My stub said 9:50, 9:48, 9:45. I didn't clock out early. I know because I cleaned the espresso head like a monk and locked the door at 10:02 while boss stood by the safe. The tablet still said goodnight. The stub said I left a little before I did. It wasn't just me. We started a group chat for shift swaps and memes. It turned into math. What did you get paid for Friday? How many hours does yours say? Screenshots landed like evidence. One photo showed a stub with 31.4 hours for a week, where the schedule had 33. Another showed break deductions that no one took because there wasn't time. The baker posted a picture of flour on their shoes and said, "Cool. Did I wash these extra minutes off too?" We didn't want a war. We wanted receipts, not the customer kind. The register kind. One morning, before open, our opener ran the Z report. End of day summary. The system prints for totals. Paper spilled out with tidy columns. Total sales. Total card tips. Cash counted. It's boring poetry. They folded the strip and slid it into a folder labeled "Numbers Don't Lie." Later, we matched that number to what boss wrote on the whiteboard as the tip pool. The difference wasn't just card fees. Card fees nibble. This gap bit. He had reasons. He always had reasons. Processing fees, he'd say, and wag a finger at the ceiling like the Visa gods were stealing bread. Breakage fund, he'd add, for when cups shatter or a latte does a swan dive. I top you up when we're slow, he'd swear. Which sounded like a myth a boss tells when the city is out of power and we're making coffee on a camp stove. We didn't go straight to DEF CON, anything. We did a whiteboard of our own. Hours scheduled versus hours paid. Tip totals versus tip payouts. The baker brought a notebook because bakers are chaotic in the morning and accountants by night. The dishwasher, who never talks, asked for a pen and drew lines that made sense at a glance. It felt like we were building a bridge back to our own time. We picked a day to talk, all of us together, not a mob, a row. After the lunch rush, when the line finally died and the dishwasher was caught up, we told boss we needed 10 minutes. He leaned on the counter, arms folded, manager face on. We laid out the stubs. We showed the Z report versus the tip payouts. We asked, help us understand. He laughed, not loud, just that airy laugh people do when they want to float over a thing. Guys, he said, stretching it out, this is how it works. We round. We have fees. We have overhead. It balances out. He tapped the papers with 2 fingers. You're not seeing the whole picture. We asked to see the whole picture. He said it's owner eyes only. We're not owner eyes. We're barista eyes, and baker eyes, and tired eyes. He said if we didn't like the system, we could opt out of tips and just take a higher base. Classic move. Make you choose between a question and your pay. We said we weren't asking to change the system. We were asking for the system to match its own numbers. He did the shrug of a man who thinks time is his. If you're going to nitpick minutes, he said, I can tighten things up on scheduling too. Which is boss code for, you'll get fewer hours. He smiled like it was friendly. It wasn't. We didn't yell. We didn't quit. We went quiet. Not sulk quiet. Strategy quiet. We gave it a week. We printed the Z reports every night and filed them. We photographed the time clock when we clocked in and when we clocked out, with the whole tablet screen in the frame. We saved our schedule screenshots. We built the boring stack of proof that speaks fluent owner. And then we went higher. Not to the internet. Not to the customers. We went to the address at the bottom of the employee handbook. HR wasn't really HR. It was the owner's email and a woman named Linda who handled payroll and birthday cupcakes. We wrote a short, calm note. We attached 3 PDFs, hours analysis, tip totals versus payouts, and time clock photos with matching stubs. The subject line was, pay and tip, discrepancies, documentation attached. We didn't know how that would land. Owner lived on a different side of the city and came in like a comet. Rare, bright, gone. Maybe he'd back boss. Maybe he'd ignore us. Maybe we'd be not a culture fit by Friday. We braced anyway, because standing up together felt better than standing alone and swallowing it. Linda replied the same day. Received. Reviewing. No emojis. A steady voice. Owner replied the next morning. I'll be in Thursday. That was 4 words that felt like a weather alert. Thursday, he showed up in jeans and a jacket that said he knew how much a bag of beans costs. He didn't ask for a latte. He asked for the back office, the door shut. 30 minutes of muffled conversation. Then, an hour. Then, boss walked out to the alley with a cigarette he didn't light. Owner called each of us in, one by one. He asked the same questions. He looked at the same papers. He was calm and boring, and I loved him for it. We learned later what he did while we made cappuccinos for a book club that couldn't remember who had decaf. He pulled time clock logs with IP addresses and edit histories. He watched the camera pointed at the tablet in the back hall. He matched the minute the tablet log said edit to the minute boss stood there alone with the screen. He matched Z reports to daily deposit slips and bank statements. He didn't guess. He followed the numbers to the window and looked in. He didn't come out front for a speech. He just called boss into the office again and stayed there. After that, it moved fast. Owner's face was steady. Boss's wasn't. They walked out together. Owner shook his hand. Boss took his jacket off the hook and didn't look back. The door dinged like it always does, like nothing big happened, which was a lie. The week had ended early. We didn't cheer. We didn't text the city. We made coffee for a teenager in a prom dress at 3 p.m. for a photo shoot, and then for a guy who reads manuals for fun. The world kept asking for milk foam at 140 degrees. The register printed receipts in the same font like it didn't secretly love us. Owner gathered us after close. He thanked us for bringing it up together. He said not every place handles it well, but this place would. He said there would be new steps. Time clock edits would lock after 24 hours, and only payroll could adjust with a note. Tip totals would print at end of day, and a copy would go in a binder we could see. Card fees would be subtracted at the actual processor rate, not a mysterious overhead. Cash tips would be back on the counter in a jar that said thanks in 3 languages. We could all see it. We could all split it. He didn't promise back pay. He said he'd audit and make it right where I can. I didn't hold my breath. I also didn't need a grand gesture. I needed the quiet math to land. He handed the keys to our shift lead, the one who always matched the milk to the drink like a scientist, and said she'd be interim. She looked like someone handed her a toddler, and also the cure to that toddler. The next day, the jar returned. A grandma put a 5 in it, like she was feeding a koi pond, and whispered, "Good." The register end of day printed a long ribbon of numbers, and we slid one copy into the clear sleeve in the binder and left one with the deposit. The time clock still beeped, but it didn't eat. My stub the next week matched the schedule like a mirror for once. We learned the quiet lesson. It pays to line up and speak in one voice when the math is wrong. Not to roast anyone, not to threaten. Just to hold up the truth like a receipt you can't argue with. It's boring work. It's also the kind that changes what the next kid earns. Boss texted 2 of us after he left. He said he didn't steal, he just balanced and invested back into the business. He said this was a witch hunt. We didn't answer because witches don't run Z reports. He landed at another cafe across town a month later. Someone sent us a menu. We hoped their jar stayed on the counter. Shift lead kept the interim title for 6 weeks and then dropped it. She became manager. She posted the tip share every Monday. She built the schedule like a Tetris champion instead of a gambler. Breaks appeared on the board, and she demanded we take them. When you write break on a line in dry erase, it looks like nothing. When you actually take it, it feels like you're a person who can chew. Customers didn't know what happened. They just felt the temperature settle. People can feel when a room is fair. It's in the way we hand back change. It's in the way the dishwasher hums. It's in the small smile that's not trying to sell anything. The coffee tasted the same. We tasted different. If you're in a spot like this, keep your head and keep records. Save stubs. Photograph the clock. Write down dates. When you bring it up together. Use the channel your job actually gives you. HR, owner, payroll. So it's on paper. And if any conversation starts feeling heated or unsafe, step away, breathe, and loop in a neutral person. You don't have to confront alone behind a closed door to prove a point. Calm is a tool. Use it. We didn't become heroes. We became employees who got paid for the minutes we worked and the tips customers meant for us. That's enough story for a small cafe with a bell that says hello and goodbye with the same little ding. Everyone got even without going nuclear. Okay, on to the neighbor one. I planted the herb bed on a Sunday afternoon that felt like a postcard. Small patch by the front steps. 2 feet wide. 4 feet long. Brick border I scavenged from the side yard. I tucked in basil, thyme, flat leaf parsley, a little rosemary that looked like a mini pine tree. 2 terracotta markers with silly handwriting. Nothing wild, nothing tall, just, I want pasta to taste like a garden. The first letter showed up on Tuesday. White envelope with my name typed in all caps. Important. Open immediately. Inside was a single page. Bold font, lots of underlines. A clip art eagle at the top that looked like it got lost on the way to 1997. The header said, Civic Homeowners Association. Notice of violation. The body said my front yard, garden bed, was out of compliance. There were words like, aesthetic standard, and street-facing uniformity. There was a fine listed at the bottom, $50 per day until I restored the frontage to approved turf. I laughed first, then I didn't. Because fines are fines even when they're hilarious. I stood on the porch and looked at my tiny basil like it had joined a gang. The bed was neat, the bricks were tidy, the soil wasn't spilling. A bee visited the thyme and looked like a polite guest. The letter made it sound like I'd installed a car lift. I read it again. The eagle made eye contact. Something felt off. The return address was a P.O. box on the other side of town. The email listed was enforcement@thecivichoa.net. The domain didn't look like a real site. It looked like a thing someone buys to win an argument. I walked to the end of the block and looked at the entrance sign. Our street has a name that tries too hard. There's no HOA sign, no gate, no guard, just a speed limit and a faded sticker about school boundaries. I checked my closing packet in a drawer. No HOA packets, no covenants, no architectural review committee. Nothing with an eagle. I texted the block group chat. We used it to trade ladders and gossip about recycling pickup. Hey, I wrote, did anyone know we had an HOA? 3 dots. Then replies. Nope. LOL what? What did you do? Probably the rosemary. People started walking out to the sidewalk like it was an eclipse. We looked at lawns, grass, rocks, a flamingo that's been sunburnt since 2009. Mrs. Ortega had a row of sunflowers along her fence that looked like they ran for office. The Johnsons had a garden bed twice my size with tomatoes and a trellis. If an HOA existed, it was asleep. Mr. Nguyen said, I've lived here 18 years. No HOA. City code? Yes. HOA? No. He told me to check the city website for front yard rules. They care about sightlines at corners, sidewalks staying clear, and trash cans. They don't care if you grow parsley unless it becomes a triffid. I went inside and opened the city site. Not fun reading. PDFs with dashes in the file names. I searched front yard landscaping, right of way, setback, height. I found a page with friendly icons and a lot of text. It said I could plant within my property line. It said, if there's a sidewalk, the strip between sidewalk and street is city right of way, so keep it low and passable. It said plantings under 24 inches near driveways and corners to preserve visibility. It said edible gardens are okay if maintained. It said nothing about aesthetic uniformity. I printed the guidelines, 3 pages. I highlighted the lines that mattered. I measured my bed. It sat a foot back from the sidewalk, 12 inches high with the bricks. If you wanted to be picky, parsley might reach up and wave at you, but not block anything. I took a breath. I told myself not to spiral. I told myself to keep it boring. I slid the letter into a folder and wrote Neighbor Bird Law on the tab because I needed to laugh a little. Wednesday, the second letter came. Same eagle. This one said, second notice. It said, failure to respond will escalate fines and begin lien process. It offered a hearing at a strip mall address at Civic HOA office. The office was a P.O. box store with a rack of birthday cards. I Googled the association. The site was a template with 1 page and a stock photo of a handshake. No board members, no meeting minutes, no recorded covenants with the county. The Contact US page went nowhere. This smelled like one neighbor playing dress up. I went for a walk and counted mailboxes. 4 houses on our block had the same letter. Everyone looked confused. One guy had stuck his letter back in the mailbox with a sticky note that said, return to sender. Eagle is drunk. We compared fonts. Identical. We compared P.O. box number. Same. We made a soft bet about who sent them. There are only so many people who love clip art and carry grudges. I considered knocking on that neighbor's door. I didn't. Because knocking when you're annoyed can invite a whole new plot. I wanted a clean plot. I did something small. I bought a clear plastic sheet protector. I printed the city guidelines single-sided and slid them in. I taped the sleeve to a short stake and tucked it near the herb bed like a menu at a tiny restaurant. I added one line at the top in black Sharpie. City guidelines for residential front yard plantings. FYI. No sarcasm, no all caps, no eagle. The next morning, I found a third letter. This one was more dramatic. Final notice. It cited Section 14 of an architectural manual. It said failure to comply would result in fines up to $200 per day. It said photos had been taken. It included one small printout. My herb bed, lovingly framed from the sidewalk like evidence of a heist. The photo had the edge of a shoe in the corner. The shoe looked like a model worn by someone who complains at managers for sport. I put the letter in the folder. Then I wrote a short note on a plain piece of paper. No HOA here. City guidelines attached at the bed. Please stop putting letters in our mailbox. Thank you. I signed my first name. I used neat handwriting like a librarian. I walked across the street to that neighbor's house. He's the kind of guy who trims his hedge with a ruler. He has a flag that is always ironed. He has a smile that shows only upper teeth. I taped the note to his door at eye level. No threat, no law quotes, just a line and a boundary. I considered ringing. I didn't. Again, boring is a strategy. For good measure, I also reported the letters to the post office via their little online form, because mailboxes are federal space. Even if the sender is a neighbor, stuffing fake fines into official boxes lives in a gray area I didn't feel like living in. I attached a photo of the envelope and the letterhead. I wrote, possible mail misuse from non-existent HOA. I didn't expect a SWAT team. I did expect a quiet nudge from someone in a uniform if it kept happening. Then I went back to the basil and watered it. The sun hit the rosemary like a halo. A bee did the slow loop. I clipped one sprig and rubbed it between my fingers. Smelled like a memory I hadn't made yet. No letters arrived on Friday. Saturday was quiet. Sunday morning, I saw that neighbor on his porch wrestling with the hose. He nodded at me. I nodded back. He didn't mention eagles. I didn't either. Later, Mrs. Ortega texted the group. No more HOA notes. Someone learned. A string of leaf emojis followed. We had a small driveway gathering that night with lemonade and a folding table that refuses to stand straight. We compared pasta recipes and pretended the whole Eagle saga was a sitcom with a neat ending in 22 minutes. The herbs, they loved the drama and then the peace. The basil got big and ridiculous. The thyme crept over the brick like it was trying to cuddle. The parsley looked like it asked for a haircut and didn't get one. I made pasta twice a week. Olive oil, chopped tomatoes, a rain of basil at the end. I tossed in parsley like confetti. I shaved a little cheese. It tasted like summer and a small win. A month later, I replaced the paper guidelines with a laminated version because sprinklers are equal opportunity destroyers. I left it there not as a taunt, but as a community service. People stop. They read. One older couple asked me where to get the document. I emailed it to them. They planted chives the next weekend. Another neighbor added mint. We warned him about mint. Mint is a colonizer in leaf form. He said he likes a challenge. I mailed a letter to the P.O. box listed on the fake notices. Certified, because I wanted a record. It was short. To whomever is sending HOA violation notices, our street does not have an HOA. Please cease sending fraudulent letters. City guidelines are attached for reference. I attached a printout. The box signed for it. I didn't hear back. Good. I know this could have gone loud. People make war out of hedges. People move because of bird baths. We kept it soft. We kept it real. We didn't let a pretend board push us into becoming the loud ones. We didn't post addresses. We didn't yell on doorsteps. We made pasta. If you ever get a violation that feels off, breathe. Check your closing documents. Check your county recorder's site for actual covenants. Check your city's public landscaping guidelines. Ask neighbors. If you do decide to respond, keep it short and calm. And if any doorstep conversation starts to feel heated or unsafe, step away and follow up in writing or through official channels. Boundaries work best when you still feel safe behind them. By fall, the rosemary was woody and bossy. I tied a little ribbon around it at the holidays. The basil retired when the nights got cold. The parsley hung on like an underdog. Every plate we made tasted better than last year's. Not because I'm a genius, because sunlight hits leaves. Because water and patience are free. Because sometimes the only committee you need is the one that lives in your kitchen drawer with a pair of scissors. Calm boundary. Clean result. Last one for tonight. The park on Saturday was the regular chaos. Strollers doing laps. Toddlers testing gravity. Dogs taking meetings. Our group meets on the wide lawn by the oak tree because it throws shade like a friend. I brought Rumble. He's a medium dog with a face that says, philosophy major. People assume from the name that he's rowdy. He's not. He's a marshmallow with legs. Sure he did his standard circuit. Sniff. Pee on nothing. Sniff again. Get stuck in a grass thought. I clipped the leash to a bench and tossed his ball a short distance. He jogged, retrieved, smiled with his whole head. A kid giggled and clapped. It was one of those nice loops where everyone gets a tiny joy. The parent showed up 15 minutes late with a stroller and a vibe. Nice shoes, tense shoulders, eyes scanning like they're scoring a room. She said hello to no one in particular, and then zeroed in on Rumble like he owed her money. "What's his name?" she asked, already making a face. "Rumble," I said. She blinked. "That's intense." "He's not," I said. "He's soft." She crouched a little and spoke to him in the voice people use for answering machines. "Hi, let's try a friendlier name. How about Buddy? Or Marshmallow? Marshmallow is cute." Rumble tilted his head. He knows his name. He also knows when humans are doing a bit. He looked at me like, "Is this improv?" "He's Rumble," I said. "That's his name." She straightened. "It's just, my child gets scared by certain words. Aggressive ones. Dogs pick up on that energy. A softer name would help." I smiled because my other choices were bad. He responds to Rumble. He also responds to Sit and Cookie. He's fine. She tried it anyway. "Buddy, come." Rumble didn't move. She clapped. "Marshmallow, sit." Rumble blinked and licked his nose. He looked like he was trying to access a file that didn't exist. Her kid was in the stroller playing with a toy car. The kid did not care about the name discourse. The kid cared about the wheels on the car and the banana he was slowly painting onto his shirt. I waved at the kid. The kid waved back with a sticky hand. She sighed. "You could at least use a nickname in the group, just while we're here, so my child can feel safe." I get the instinct. You want to shape the world around your kid, so it's round and soft. I also get reality. The world is a bench with a dog on a leash, and 20 names you can't change. "Rumble is a sound," I said. "Like thunder far away. He's named after that. He's sweet. He's safe. He's also fully vaccinated, trained, and current on his tags." She tried a different tack. "Well, words matter." "Agreed," I said. "That's why I use his name." She looked around like she was assembling allies. The group was in their own plots. One dad was negotiating with a toddler about hat ethics. A couple was trying to untangle a leash situation that looked like knitting. My friend Kay was handing out water bowls like a flight attendant. She tried one more move, commands with a treat. She took a biscuit from her bag, waved it, and said, "Buddy." I put my hand up. "Please don't give him treats without asking," I said. "And don't call him into your space. It teaches him to ignore me." She gave me a look that held 100 PTA meetings. "I'm just trying to help." "Appreciate it," I said. "We're good." I tossed Rumble's ball again. He did his goofy trot. He brought it back and dropped it at my feet. I told him sit, and he sat. I told him down, and he did a nap cosplay. The kid in the stroller clapped and said, "Dog," with a lot of G. Rumble's tail thumped. I let the kid toss the ball a short distance. Rumble fetched, then returned it to me because we have a contract. The parent watched like I was showing off. I wasn't. I was just living in my lane. I gave Rumble a treat from my pocket because I know what's in it and how many he can have. I threw in, "Good boy, Rumble," because praise is free. She huffed and pulled out her phone. She walked a few steps away and did fast thumbs in the parent group chat that runs our playdates. I felt my pocket buzz a minute later. I ignored it. Rumble sniffed a dandelion like it had a backstory. The oak tree shook one leaf at us like a blessing. Another mom sidled up. "We've been through this with her and a cat named Chaos," she whispered. She wanted the cat to be called Cupcake during visits. We both smiled into our elbows. People are going to people. I unclipped Rumble so he could do a zoom around the small off-leash circle I trust. He did one loop, then came back and sat like a show-off. I did a handshake, then a high five. He blinked like a polite prince. The kid in the stroller cheered. I told the kid, "He's Rumble." The kid said, "Rumble? Good enough." The parent finished her text and came back. "I think we should vote on name etiquette," she said, like she had invented a city ordinance. Kay, who runs the calendar and is the diplomat of us, smiled. "We can vote on lots of things. Snacks, times, locations. We don't vote on other people's kids or dogs' names." "It's for safety," the parent said. "Safety is leashes, space, consent, and paying attention," Kay said. "Names are just names." She didn't love that. She made a circle in the air with her hand, like she was stirring a pot of soup that isn't soup. "I'll bring it up in the chat," she said. "It's a community." "It is," Kay said. "And we like you in it." It was the kindest exit line possible. I kept it simple. I clipped Rumble's leash. I gave him a treat and said, "Let's take a lap." We walked the perimeter of the park. He sniffed a bench leg with reverence. We paused to let a toddler roll a ball toward us. Rumble sniffed the ball with legal caution. The toddler laughed like bells. The parent of the toddler said, "Nice dog." I said, "Thanks." No mention of thunder or cupcakes. When we got back to the group spot, the parent was still looking at her phone like it owed her. The chat had opinions. I checked mine later. It was a whole thread. "Dogs keep their names. Please don't command dogs that aren't yours. Ask before treats. Let's focus on recall and space awareness." One dad added, "My kid is scared of vacuums. We don't call them soft suckers when we visit you." The group heart reacted. It wasn't a drag. It was a boundary with a joke baked in. The parent posted a long message about language and safety and community standards. People responded with real safety standards, leash laws, vaccination requirements, incident reporting, park rules. She pivoted to, "I just want my child to feel comfortable. We do too." Someone suggested story time at a quieter corner. Someone else said we can do a meet the dog circle next week so kids can learn names and ask to pet. Real solutions, not rename theater. We finished the playdate without fanfare. Rumble shared space with a corgi who thinks he's a parade. Two doodles stared at each other like politicians. A baby slept straight through it and drooled on their sleeve. The sun did that thing it does at 5 p.m., where it makes everything look like a golden apology. On the way out, the parent approached me again. So, Rumble. She said it like it tasted okay now. He's chill. Yeah, I said. He's a good boy. She nodded at her kid. He liked throwing the ball. The kid waved. Banana still present. I smiled. Anytime, I said. Just ask first. She said, okay, and we both let it be that. We took the long way home. Sidewalk cracks. A mailbox with a sticker that says, honk if you love naps. Rumble's tail did a metronome. We passed a guy watering his grass like it was an encore. Rumble didn't bark at the sprinkler. He's not a sprinkler guy. He's a let's sniff a leaf for 2 minutes guy. At our gate, I stopped and crouched. Rumble, I said. He looked me dead in the eye. I said, shake. He put his paw in my hand with the gravity of a vow. I said, good boy. He wagged so hard, his back half almost left the chat. If you ever end up in an awkward pet name moment, keep it light. Use your dog's real name. Advocate without heat. If someone tries to command or feed your dog, it's fine to step in and say, please don't. And if a conversation starts to feel heated or unsafe, clip the leash, take a little walk, and follow up later with the group. Safety is bodies and space and attention. Names are for recall and love. We got home. I rinsed his paws. He did a full-body shake that sprayed exactly 3 droplets onto my face. I fed him dinner. He ate like a polite vacuum. I sat on the floor and leaned into him while he made tiny satisfied noises. Outside, the sky went pink for no reason. Inside, we were 2 creatures with the right names. All right, that's tonight. If you're asleep, sweet dreams. If not, thanks for hanging while I built. See you next time.